Welcome to the Careering Podcast, a collection of rants and reckons on all things career, hosted by author and creator of Careering 9, Melissa Davies, and her partner in crime, Kelsey Ingalls. If you're brave enough, take a seat, settle in and listen as we tackle difficult career and workplace issues. Sometimes we'll be wrong, sometimes we'll be right, but we will deliver it with confidence and a touch of colourful language, so it will at least be entertaining.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Careering Podcast. I am your co-host Kelsey, Melissa Davies' partner in crime. How are you going, Melissa?
I am sensational.
Oh, that's a big word to start us off today. Thank you all for coming back and listening to us. I know that some of you are doing it just because you love us. And then others of you, we hope that you're actually finding some of our rants and reckons valuable. But we're back with another episode. So Liz, what's been going on in your world? What's happening?
Well, I've been thinking a little bit about the limits we put on ourselves, and I'm not a David Goggins fan, and anyone that's into the fitness space will know of the David Goggins. He's an ex-Navy SEAL guy who has a really compelling story about how he built up his mental and physical toughness, and he has a saying that when we think we're at our limit, we're actually only about 40% of the way there. And I love knowing that where I think I need to quit, and maybe I'm thinking about hiking up a hill, when I think I'm done, I can't do any more, I've probably got about 60% more fuel in the tank. And whether that's doing a shitty project or getting some work done or writing another chapter or getting up that hill, that reminder that where we think our limits are, there's probably a bit of wriggle room to push on a bit. That's been really top of mind for me this week. Please lighten this up, Kels.
I mean,
what about you?
As per the theme that is currently emerging, I'm really into like the autumn feel, you know? I've just been thinking about I really want to get cozy. Like I'm good with the blankets and the red wine. I've got an hoodie. I love it. I'm all about everything cozy and comfy at the moment, and like I'm okay with my limits. I'm okay with my limit. Probably got how hot I can get within my cozy limit. Like, you know, the hoodie tends to get a little bit hot if you've got the heat pump on, but that's the only limit I'm thinking about at that point in time. So, you know, thank you for taking us there.
We are different animals.
Immediately, just jumping straight on in it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That definitely makes me feel like I'm not thinking hard enough. But hey, I'm thinking about the red wine that I'm going to buy later on, so that's totally fine. Well, now that we've hit you with two sides of that coin, we're going to hit you with two sides of a different coin. Today we're going to be talking about whether working for yourself is better or working for others is better. Because Melissa and I have two different opinions and two different preferences when it comes to working for yourself versus working for others. So Liz, what's your preference?
I think it's contextual. So now my preference is working for myself. When I was younger, I liked working for organisations because I was surrounded by people I could learn from, and I had opportunities to move sideways and grow in ways that I never could have by myself. And I didn't have a skill set that I could have commercialised. I wasn't an artist. I wasn't a ballerina, clearly.
I've seen you line dance. I mean, you could try.
Oh, no one will ever accuse me of being graceful. That isn't... No. So needless to say, was not going to have a career in the arts. Certainly cannot sing, full of enthusiasm, zero talent. But working for large organisations meant... Early on, working for others meant that I had structure, I could learn things, I built great networks, built great friends, mentors, etc. Whereas now I would really struggle to sit in a role where I had a narrow box of things that I had to do. So I think it is contextual. I don't think I had the skill set back then to add value in the same way I do now as a freelancer or being self-employed.
But you're definitely in the, I don't want to go and sit in an office environment now. I'm literally watching Melissa's whole body shudder.
Yeah, that doesn't know. It's a firm no. And interestingly, I was reflecting on the types of roles that when I did work in organisations, when working for somebody else, what types of roles I really enjoyed. And it was when I agreed with the organisation's purpose and direction, but I had enough bandwidth to get the job done my way. And I remember sitting in an interview for a role in Wellington, and I was absolutely the wildcard candidate for the role and had been working sort of contracting and freelancing for a couple of years, and this would have been a full-time role. And the general manager and chairman of the board were doing the interview, and their question to me was, what is your weakness? And I said, business as usual. If I have to do the same thing 5 days in a row, I'm going to find a way to do it better, faster, smarter, and really change things. Thinking, there's no way I'm getting this role. And the next question was, how do you like to work best? And I'd spent a bit of time reflecting on that. So I knew that for me to thrive, I'm like, show me the finish line, tell me where the swim lanes are, then get out of my way. So clearly, let me work like it's my own business. So that probably says a lot about why I like working for myself.
Do you think you could ever go back into an office environment now?
I've thought about this, and there's a couple of organisations that I look at and their purpose so aligns with mine that I could, but I'd need to be in a position where I had autonomy over decision making. That's ultimately the thing that I need to be good at what I do is being able to make decisions rather than in an organisation where there was a lot of structure and politics and hierarchy around how to get things done. So,
yeah, I can imagine that navigating office politics is probably not something you've got patience for.
Patience? I don't have patience for much. It's also not in my DNA. Ballet and patience.
Two things you will not see on Melissa's resume.
Definitely not. But what about you, Cass? Talk me through when you have loved working for... Well, what's your take on it, actually? Start there.
Well, I think the reason that we're having this conversation is because Melissa and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago where I think I finally got to a point where I just kind of realized that I don't like working for myself. I don't like freelancing. I don't like working by myself. It's not a space where I find I do my best work. And I get in my own head and I can't see a way forward. I'm a collaborator. I have to brainstorm. I have to talk to people. I have to pull the answers out. And I enjoy being in an office environment because of that, because I can turn around to someone and go, hey, what are you thinking about this? How do we work on this? How do we move this together? And then also I can delegate. Okay, yeah. I quite enjoy that.
Yeah, I miss both of those things.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think I've been pushing myself to go, we've talked about shoulds before, but this is one of my shoulds, is I should want to work for myself. I should be at a point in my career that I want to go out and do the freelance thing and want to go out and work on contracts and do lots of different things. But I find it really hard. I find it incredibly hard to keep motivated. And I just don't think I'm at a point in my confidence journey within my career to feel safe backing myself. I think there's a real sense of security that I enjoy having a fixed term contract or a permanent contract within an organization, and you go into that organization and you sit there. I also am tired, and I just don't think I really want to deal with having to go and fight and find work at the moment. That just seems really hard.
And it's interesting, as you're talking, I keep thinking about Myers-Briggs and those other psych profiles. You're an extrovert and I'm 50-50 introverted, extroverted. So I need that thinking space. And so for me, being stuck in an office with people all day, I'm like, shush everybody, I need some quiet. And those that know me know I love a chat. So I assure you, I'm definitely, 50-50 introverted, extroverted. I do love the people engagement, but that ability to get alone time to reflect, process and think, I really need that. But I do miss everything Kels was saying about, especially being around savvy colleagues where they bring new ideas. And especially if you're in a great organisation where the team is diverse, they're going to bring a worldview that you just don't have on your own. And I'm interested, Kels, in have you engaged with other freelancers that have brought good skills to the table that you've either hired in-house or kept working with and they felt like they're part of the team, but actually they still get to run the race their own way?
Yeah, so I think I've hired a few contractors that have come in and sat within the office but only did the 20 hours a week the way that they wanted to do it. But I ended up hiring that person as the best one that I'm thinking of. I hired that person as a permanent full-time employee.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. She left her car parked in my place for a while.
Yeah, she was amazing. And still is amazing. But I do think, moving between those two things, there's pros and cons between both of those things. And there's the opportunity to make a shit ton more money as a contractor, but it's also, it comes in, it ebbs and flows.
Yeah, there's no certainty. And it comes with a shit ton of admin, I think.
Yeah. Screw doing taxes.
Yeah, I was about to say, I did actually write a list of the things that are hard about being a freelancer or being a solo employee. And I wrote, pay. So while the hourly rate might look great, you're not, every time you're looking for the next opportunity, you're not being paid for that. Your taxes, just invoicing all of the tasks. And then the big one that stood out for me when I was thinking about the real difference between working for others versus working for yourself is the on-the-job learning, that ability to build capability from collaborating with others and working on projects or being part of a cross-functional team that you didn't expect. I think when you're a freelancer, you often get really good at one or two things, whereas when you're, swimming along as part of a cohort, you build capability and your knowledge base grows almost by osmosis because you've got collective intelligence as a team.
Yeah. And I guess that's, there's differences between being a freelancer where you do project work and so you're not actually spending any time in an office with anyone, or being a contractor that's in there for 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week for a certain amount of time. I definitely prefer being a contractor that's in an office for a certain amount of time. When I came back from China, I did a contract and I loved it. It led to another contract, but I loved the fact that I had flexibility and I wasn't stuck into one thing, but I was still getting a regular paycheck like I would if I was employed like a normal person, versus having to sit at home by myself at my computer and manage multiple clients and deal with different workloads and hit different deadlines, and it's all on me and there's no security to hide behind anyone else. That freaks me the fuck out and I do not want to do it.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it doesn't sound great. And I've often talked a lot about a bit of an analogy about working for yourself, because I do think it is held up as being the sexy thing that people should want to do.
Yeah, it's almost like you're not an expert if you're not going out and doing this thing for yourself. And I'm like, I just don't want to. Yeah,
and I talk a lot about how hard it is. And I think it's rare that people have this conversation about what it's really like to be self-employed. And I'm not talking about running a business where you've got momentum. I'm talking about either being a startup founder or self-employed, which I'm both of. Don't do both. And I think it's really relevant because at the moment the number of self-employed women without employees in New Zealand grew by 14% to the year ending March 2021, and it's still a lot less than men by every age bracket. So the gap closes 30 to 39, but overall there's about a 7 to 30,000 business difference between women as solo employees versus men as solo employees.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I wrote that down to ask you that question. I was like, why is this? Is it the nature of the work? Is it confidence levels? And you mentioned confidence, so I do wonder if there's something in
Honestly,
that.
For me, it's confidence. I don't feel like I've got enough knowledge to step out there and go, trust me with your business, pay me the money. I just don't. I don't back myself at that level yet. Yeah. And I mean, we've all met mediocre white men that have a lot of confidence in that space and they'll tell you as much.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is jump on LinkedIn to find them.
Yeah, it's actually really true. And I think that there is a lot of research about confidence levels between men and women. And you would have all heard the old analogy that if there's a job ad in the paper and there's 10 competencies listed or 10 skills listed, a typical male, and when we say this stuff, we do mean really broad stereotypes. A typical male will read that job description, know confidently they can do one of those 10 things, but truly believe they could do that role with their eyes closed, apply for it, and show up for that interview full of confidence. Most women will read it, if they had the skill set to tick off 9 of those things, they will hold back because they don't have all 10 and probably won't apply for the role. And if you've listened to our session on negotiating pay rises, if they do then show up, get offered the role, they're probably going to ask for 7K less. These are the actual fact-based structural things that we need to start changing. And so I do think confidence is a huge part of this.
Yeah, and I also think the tall poppy syndrome plays into it a hell of a lot as well. Like, I'm not going to lie, like I've got a hell of a fear of putting my head above water and actually putting my name to something. Like doing this podcast freaks me the hell out. Like I don't want to be teared down. And so being able to back yourself and promote yourself as this expert in this space, that I just haven't got that confidence level yet.
And so far with podcasting, Kelsey is the expert at all of the production, and I'm the one that turns up and goes, I hope this is going to go well. This is going to be great.
It's only because of my ADD fixation. It's fine. I'm enjoying it.
And I think that's what's interesting with us as Kelsey and I, as we've teased this out, I don't think I could have jumped into working for myself when I was 30. It absolutely took me a few more years.
When did you start working for yourself?
Well, it's a very funny story how I started working for myself. Because when I was working in Australia for Wesfarmers, which is, humble brag, Australia's largest listed organisation, it was a shithole to work for, and the most sexist, racist, awful organisation. Luckily for me, I had a really cool team. I really liked the people I worked with. But overall, the organisation was terrible. And while I was working there, I had a bad horse riding accident and ended up on a couple of months I fractured my wrist and fractured my back and was on leave for quite a while and started researching what it would look like to create an organisation that was the opposite of that organisation. Really like a values-based organisation, impact-led, truly inclusive, where that core ethos was high trust, high transparency, and people could come to work to add value the way they wanted to, if that was working for 2 hours from 5 a.m. till 7 a.m. or whatever. It was basically, I was so pissed off with the culture I was working within, and I had this time where I was pretty much housebound, so I bought an iPad and started working on creating some online businesses to figure out what that would look like, and designing what an organisation would look like. And then a year later, I think, when I left that organisation, went travelling, landed back in New Zealand and decided to stay at home, realised I was going to give it a go and work for myself. And because my background has typically been in strategy and marketing, I knew the first thing I needed to do was have a plan on a page and a swanky business card. And I knew all these facts and stats about confidence levels and how we show up. So I literally forced myself to get a business card with my company branding on it and put Melissa Davies, director, and MBA. And I felt like it was total wank fest doing that. And yet the first working event I went to here in Christchurch, I met 3 people who got me my first paid amounts of work. And they were like, what experience do you have? And I talked about my corporate experience. And no one questioned it more than that because I just delivered it confidently. I knew those things, but I was like, I remember going home the first time someone paid me and I was like, how did this even happen?
And when you did those first contracts, were you in an organisation or were you just working from home? Like, what was the setup for them?
It was working out of a shared office space and facilitating workshops and then handing back a piece of written work, so strategy mainly. So a marketing strategy or a growth strategy. So running a team workshop and then putting some recommendations down and handing back a report.
And how did you feel when you did the first one?
Well, I Googled the shit out of how to do it as a freelancer because I only knew how to do it from inside an organisation. But what I realised is the skills were exactly the same. I think when it came to those first client engagements, the skill set was exactly the same, whether I was in an organisation running a marketing team or telling someone how they should run their marketing team. I'm not telling, actually, more helping shape what they should do. What I realised is those core competencies were exactly the same. The only difference is I had to write a proposal document and I had to send the invoice afterwards. And the pressure I really felt was making sure they got value from that session. Yeah. And so I think probably for the first few years, I would have been underpaid greatly, which is actually, again, really typical. There is a pay gap in the freelance space. So women, and also if you're going to get paid late, women get paid late 10% more often than men.
You serious?
Yes, it's the same thing around money. Like we don't ask.
Like chasing
we don't like
invoices.
chasing it. If you're using Xero, set up a reminder for a week after the due date, please.
Gosh. Or even just using software like Henry,
Yes.
where it just does it all for you
Yeah.
and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think in terms of the freelancing space is an interesting one, or setting up your own business. Why don't people do it? When I think back to when I first did that, I don't think I truly believed I was ever going to run my own company. It was more just, there's some things I like doing. I don't really have a plan from here.
And I need some money.
And I need some income because I had a negatively geared mortgage in Australia that was sucking out all my savings. And I wanted to be here in Otatahi. It was post-earthquake. I wanted to have time to volunteer. I was doing a lot of work with the Christchurch Women's Refuge at the time, and I wanted to make sure that could still be a focus for me.
So what is it about the freelance contract lifestyle that you would not throw away for love nor money?
Oh yeah, what's good? So anyone that I'm close friends with will see my Insta.
All of the walking.
I get to design my day how I want to. It's not uncommon for me to work from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then head for the hills through the middle of the day, soak up some sunshine, be out in nature, and then come back and work into the evening. And everyone sees the highlight reel on socials, but doesn't see that all the pressure, the fact that I'm working weekends or that I don't have income this month.
I've had so many people say to me, man, Melissa must live a really good life. And I'm like, honestly, I've seen it from the inside. And she's stressed half the time. That's why she's going on the walks.
Yeah. And it's where I do my creative thinking, actually. Because I think the other sort of type of working that we haven't touched on, we talked on working in an organisation versus freelancing, is being a founder.
So like all of the chaos all rolled into one.
Yeah, with debt. And one of the things I've talked to Kels about before is that I'm a judge for the New Zealand High Tech Awards, and the ratio of female founders to male founders, it's staggering, the difference. Like it's probably 90% male founders, 90% male teams, which is amazing. We have that kind of depth of talent, right? I love that we have these really capable men that are coming up with new innovation. And I know that there are equal amounts of women doing the exact same thing, and they're not putting their hands up into these awards.
Or do you think they're just not considering themselves as founders? They just own a small business?
Yeah, I think in the tech space, it's probably a bit more black and white. And it'll be interesting to look at the data on small business owners, because the stat I talked about before was around self-employed women without employees, so very much more the freelancer kind of model. Small businesses would be interesting.
Yeah.
And I think, we are a country where the average size business is 2.6 full-time employees. And the average annual training spend is about $1,000 per employee. So one of the things that, what I would change is when I worked for other people, they paid for my learning and development. They had a training budget. When you're self-employed and you're freelancing and income is inconsistent, it's really hard to justify spending $3,500 to go for a kick-ass training course, even though it would be amazing and help your business grow. So it's really important. If I look back on what I do differently, I would have put a percentage of income away for my own learning and development budget.
Yeah, I think just working for others, yes, it brings security, and yes, it brings almost like a layer of protection because you're working under the umbrella of someone else's brand. But I also think it comes with a lot of that additional outside of pay benefits to you as a person, but as well as like your career moving forward.
Yeah, your Christmas parties will be way more fun than mine because
Shit, yeah.
Me, myself, and I
loves the Christmas party, and we have cake on everyone's birthdays, and we have a social club. I don't think I could keep myself motivated and keep myself moving forward without those social events. Do you miss it?
Yes, very much.
Aww.
Can I come to your Christmas party?
I'll see what I can do.
Can I be your plus one? I think momentum, that word momentum is one I think about often when I think about how challenging it is being a founder and or being self-employed and or writing a book. Because what I've realized is every day I have to either find some motivation, some mojo, or some discipline to do the tasks. Whereas I think back to when I've been on a fixed term contract somewhere or I've had a full-time job, I knew all I had to do was show up in the office and there was this momentum.
That's what I love about it. I cannot momentum myself.
I can't momentum myself.
I have to, like, if I know that I can show up and my direct report is going, I need this from you, or someone else is going, I need this from you, I have to ramp up into it. Like, I can't get away with not doing it. But when I work for myself, I'm like, that deadline can wait until next week. I'm not the person that can... I just can't even turn up somewhere on time, let alone meet a deadline on time most of the time by myself. I'll be completely honest.
But amazing to have that self-awareness and know what you need to thrive in an environment.
Yeah, I like the talky talk, not the doey do.
Yeah, I don't love the doey do either. Hence, we're sitting here on a podcast. We're doing the talky talk.
Yeah, but then I also got to do the doey do.
Yeah, you have to.
I think one thing that I found really hard as a contractor, and as a contractor going into an organisation, not just sitting in my own space doing freelance work, was getting up to speed and being able to add value quickly. I think there is just this amazing skill set within people that do contracting for a living where they know the right questions to ask in an organisations when they first get into them to be able to understand how that place works and how to get up to speed really quickly. And I found real hard.
Do you think that's because the type of work they would do is typically a rinse and repeat type of work and it's just nuanced for the organisation rather than a completely bespoke style of work?
I think it can be both. Like, I think there's some organisations where, if you go in as a designer, or if you go in as a real output role, or even a BA, you can go in and you know that you're there for the specific thing and you need to figure out what the problem is, get all the data, define the problem, design the solution, and then deliver it. Whereas I think when you're coming in and you're doing lots of different things and you're just sort of coming into maybe a marketing coordinator role or an executive role, and you're expected to do a lot of things that a person would normally do in a permanent position, but they are holding it as a contractor for any specific reason, that I find really hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the things that I've thought about a lot around, you asked that question about what would it take for me to go, would I have a job again? And it makes me laugh, actually, because I remember once, it's been a really hard couple of years trying to get Holdmine, the tech venture, off the ground with COVID, being a freelancer. Like, it actually has been super shit. And I remember ringing Kels and going, I think I'm just going to get a job. And she's like, holy shit, emergency, do not get a job. Things must be really bad. Like, what is going on? Whatever you do, sleep on it. Do not get a job. Because she knows me so well that would just suck the life out of me. And I've started thinking about why is that? And I keep thinking about when you work for somebody else, if your values don't align, it's really hard to shift the dial and to have impact. And I know for me, I've always had this real drive that I want to leave the world in a better place than when I arrived in it. And sometimes the role you're in or the organisation doesn't allow you to do that. And again, when I think about working for Wesfarmers, I just made the biggest company more profit. It didn't feel good.
Yeah. And then it's hard to sit in an organisation making profit for someone else when you know that you can make it for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that's the driver, then why not do it for yourself?
Yeah, or for me it was lifestyle. I was like, how can I do the work I want to do, help organisations make more profit for themselves while also being able to write a book and fund a startup and do many things and work remotely if I want to and
do all of the things.
Do all of the things and go hiking. And as long as I've got my laptop, I can work from anywhere. And I think when we worked in Wellington, I loved working there because I knew that if we got it right, businesses in Wellington were better off, and therefore the Wellington community was better off, and therefore everyone in Wellington was better off. So there was a direct positive human impact if we did our jobs well.
Yeah.
Which meant the whole organisation, the culture was awesome. Everyone was absolutely purpose-led, and that's not always the case. So I think that's the bit I'd struggle with, is finding an organisation whose values aligned with mine, so I would feel like I was contributing in a meaningful way.
And no one told you what to do.
Yeah, I really had a great relationship with my boss.
Okay, well, how would you wrap this up? What advice would you give to people who were considering working for themselves or working for others?
So I think, we've shared a couple of perspectives here, our own, limited views. I would really encourage you to go and talk with people who live and work the way you want to, and ask them what's great, what sucks, what's harder than they expected, but what they love about it. Then spend some time knowing what works for you. So look at how you like to work, some of the tasks you like doing. If you're going to go freelancing, go into it with your eyes open, because it's not just doing the tasks you enjoy. There is a responsibility as a business owner to meet compliance obligations.
Make sure you've got your liability insurance as well if you're going to go in and do it.
Yeah. Have 2 bank accounts. Every time you get paid, put 35% of your income into that account for tax.
Or just use a platform like Henry where it just does it for you. I loved it. It was great. It made my life a shit ton easier.
I like that we've plugged both Xero and Henry. Like, yay, the Wellington tech startups. And so my other sort of final takeout was, if you do go freelancing or start a new venture, do the work to have a plan up front. So I jokingly said I had a plan on a page, and that's actually all it was. And there's cool tools out there like a lean canvas, which we can chuck a link in the show notes around. If you've got an idea, figure out who your audience is, what their pain point is, how you're going to meet it, why you, and how you'll make money. Own the money conversation with your customers, and spend time on the tasks you're great at, and outsource where you can. So it might seem a lot to spend money on an accountant or a bookkeeper, but if you absolutely hate reconciling invoices, putting my hand up here, I have a bookkeeper and I have an accountant, and I love that I don't have to do those things, yet I'm meeting all my compliance obligations.
Yeah, or just getting a virtual assistant,
Yep.
or using Fiverr to find someone else to do, or Upwork to find someone else to do the shit you just don't want to.
Yes, because you don't have someone you can delegate to, like CalStars. I'm very jealous hearing all of this now.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things to go into with your eyes open. I think for me, it's decide what you want to do, not what the expectation is on you to do things. So I know in New Zealand we are the country of small businesses and everyone working for themselves, and so there is a real expectation that at some point in your life you will. But if you don't want to, that's absolutely okay, and you don't need to feel like you have to feel like you're moving forward in your career or you're going to be an expert in a space. You can actually do that by working for others.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I haven't sold it to anyone in this podcast, Cal, so...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hey, look, you do you. It's the basic outtake of all of this. So to wrap us up, what tweet of the week have you got for us, Melissa?
So I've got one from Alana Podrix, and she said, the universe always proves us right in the opinion we have of ourselves. Bake in some Monday morning expansion, awareness, and trust moments.
Yours are always so profound, and my just really bring us back down to earth. My TikTok of the week is it's all about those self-employed friends from high school that love a pyramid scheme and slide into our Facebook DMs with, "Hey girly." So this is my favorite TikTok of the week.
Here's one phrase every woman needs to feel confident saying.
It's a pyramid scheme, Beth. I'm not joining. Now stop messaging me.
Now you try.
Let's be honest, we've all had someone slide into our DMs from high school that that has become a self-employed freelancer for another multinational or otherwise known as a multi-level marketing scheme.
So thanks again for listening in. We will be releasing these episodes regularly wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to subscribe, rate, and like us on all the channels. We do love questions, stories, and topic ideas, so send them our way. Until next time, get out there, back yourself, and work whatever way works best for you.